All right, we're looking at another sentence from Verlin Klinkenborg's The Rise and Decline of the English Major. So this one's a little bit more complicated than the last one. The teaching of the humanities has fallen on hard times. It's not all that much longer, but there's a little bit more going on, so let's dig right in. To begin with, let's find our verb. At first glance, it might look as though a few different words here could be our verb. Those are teaching, has, and fallen. Okay, so these are all words that in some contexts could be used as verbs. In fact, has fallen is our verb phrase. A verb phrase consists of the main verb fallen as well as any helping verbs, which here is has. In this case, teaching is not a verb at all. We will get to that later. We'll spend several minutes talking about that. Okay, so I'm just giving you the fact that has fallen is our verb phrase. Okay. So, before we find our subject, let's eliminate some possibilities by eliminating prepositional phrases. Remember we talked in a previous video that nouns that are objects of prepositions cannot be subjects of sentences or objects of verbs. So if we eliminate those, then it becomes pretty clear what words are left to be our subject. So we can cross out of the humanities, of is a preposition. We can also cross out on hard times because on is a preposition. We've already discussed that has fallen is our verb phrase, so we can cross that off as well. So that leaves us two words to pick from, the and teaching. The is a definite article. We've talked about those a little bit already, so we can eliminate that. Now all we're left with is teaching. So teaching here is actually our subject, even though it probably to some of you looked like a verb. That's understandable. So subject is teaching. Teaching here, in this context, is a noun, okay? That might be a little trippy for you to understand or for you to believe, but we're going to talk about that here in a second, okay? So, what are nouns? You're probably familiar with the idea that nouns are people, places, and things, okay? But they can also be ideas and activities. And so teaching here is actually an activity noun, and those nouns are what are called verbals. They look like verbs because they have their verb forms with ing on the end, but in this case they're actually acting as nouns. Some ideas of, or some examples of idea nouns are liberty, justice, freedom, generosity. You might think of these as things, but you can also think of them as ideas. And then activities, cooking, learning, teaching, throwing, swimming. Okay, you take the main verb, you add ing, and now you've got an activity noun. So, when we take a verb and add ing to it, we call that form of the verb the present participle. And really, you needing to know present participle, don't worry about it. That's a word that I'll use from time to time, but you don't need to remember those words. Okay, I'm just going to try to give you practical information, and all the terminology really is up to you whether or not you want to learn it. Okay, so don't freak out. I'll use that word, but I don't expect you to have it memorized. So, present participles can act as main verbs, but they can also act as adjectives or as nouns, and we were going to take a look at that. So, present participle as a main verb. So we take the normal form of the verb go, add ing, and then we pair it with a helping verb. This relationship is going nowhere. Okay, so here we have a verb phrase, helping verb is, plus the present participle going. I am grilling burgers for my friends. Grill, add ing, present participle, plus a helping verb. He was backing out of his driveway when the limb fell on his car. Ing forms of the verb, present participles, again, you don't have to worry about that term, are only used as verbs when they are accompanied by a helping verb. Here we have is, am, was in the previous example. Life gets tricky because present participles can also act as adjectives. Okay, here are some examples. Neil, running late to work, sped through a stoplight. If you actually take a look at this sentence, sped is your verb. Okay, running is what we call a verbal. It's like a verb form that's not acting as a verb. So we have the present participle, which is the main verb, run, the main verb form, plus ing. Running is a little bit irregular. We have to double the last consonant, so we have running. And here it's acting as an adjective, okay? Running or running late to work is modifying or describing Neil. Okay, so this is acting as an adjective. That annoying radio station is the only one my car picks up. Annoying is a present participle, verb plus ing, and it's describing the radio station. Okay? The tiring runner lost his lead in the final few meters. Tiring is describing runner, and it's not acting as the verb. The verb in that sentence is lost. The verb in the previous sentence is. That annoying radio station is the only one my car picks up. Okay. To make matters worse, and to be perfectly honest, present participles can also act as nouns. Okay, and that's what we have in our sentence that we're talking about. Here we have activities. Running a business is much more difficult than I expected. Burning tires pollutes the air. The teaching of the humanities has fallen on hard times. Okay, so these are activities. A lot of times you won't just have the single activity word. Here we have the teaching, which is kind of shorter than a lot of these other examples, like running a business. But we have, these are activity nouns, okay? Running is much more difficult than I expected. Running what? A business. So running here is acting as a noun. It's an action or an activity noun. The verb in this sentence is actually is. The verb in the following sentence, burning tires pollutes the air, is pollutes. And the verb of our sentence, the teaching of the humanities has fallen on hard times, is the verb phrase has fallen. Okay, we'll take a breath. I know that was a lot. If you have to rewind the video, watch it again, that's fine. I understand. Okay. One more thing. We have present participles, which are the verb form, main verb form plus ing, but we also have past participles, and these can also work as adjectives. This is kind of an aside for now, but I want to mention it. In our sentence, has fallen is the main the verb phrase, but fallen can also be used in a different way. Here we see fallen used as an adjective. The fallen power lines blocked traffic for hours. The verb here is actually blocked. Fallen is an adjective. Okay, so you can see things that look like verbs, but aren't actually acting as verbs. And it's really tricky. As I tell students in face-to-face classes all the time, English sucks, but it's the language we're stuck with, so let's try to figure it out as best we can. Alright, now coming back to our sentence. Let's take a look at everything we have going on here. The is a definite article. It's modifying or describing teaching. Okay? Teaching is a noun. We call this particular type of noun the activity noun a gerund. That's the present participle functioning as a noun. And in this case, it's also the subject of the sentence. Okay? We have our verb has fallen. What has fallen on hard times? The teaching, specifically the teaching of humanities. So teaching is our subject. Okay. Of is a preposition. Of what? The humanities. The is another definite article. It's modifying humanities. Humanities is a noun, and it's serving as the object of the preposition of. Has is our helping verb, paired with fallen, which is our main verb. This is a past participle. We'll get to that a little bit later. On is another preposition. On what times? Times is a noun. It's the object of the preposition. On what kind of times? Hard times. So hard is an adjective modifying times. I hope breaking down the sentence like this kind of helps you. I know it's probably a pain in the butt to listen to me rambling on, so if you need to kill the audio and just sort of stare at the screen, that's totally fine. But hopefully this is helping you. Okay, so we've talked about using verbs in a lot of different ways. They're kind of like tomatoes. I have a feeling I didn't add the next slide that I was going to. Right. They're like tomatoes in that you can use them in a bunch of different ways. We're growing tomatoes right now. You can use them for salsa. You can use them for sauces. You can use them for soups. Verbs are kind of the same way. Okay. So we have verb forms. We have the main form and then the main form with an S. He teaches. I teach. So these are like the main form of the sentence. You use them for simple present tenses. You have the simple past, which for cook is cooked. The past participle, which is cooked. It's the same as the simple past because it's a regular verb. Hopefully you've heard that term before, regular verb. And then the present participle, which is the main form plus ing. Okay. Then we have some irregular verbs, okay? So you have your main verb in your S form, eat or eats. The simple past is ate. This is an irregular verb because you don't just add ed to it, okay? Eat becomes ate. And the past participle is eaten, okay? So a simple past is used without any helping verb. I ate the whole pie. But the past participle is used with a helping verb. So I have eaten many pies in my life, which sadly is the case. So the helping verb there is have with the past participle eaten. And then we have present participles, which are the main verb plus ing again. Okay, fall works the same way. Fall, fell, fallen, falling. Teaches, taught, taught, teaching. Okay, so a few examples of the different verb forms. Sort of talked about that already. Okay, the past and present participle forms of verbs only act as verbs if they are used in conjunction with helping verbs. Okay. So the past participle, say eaten, is only used with have, has, or had, okay? I have eaten many pies in my life. I wouldn't say I am eaten many pies in my life, right? Am is a helping verb, but you don't use that kind of helping verb with the past participle. Present participles are used with those to be words, okay? Is, am, are, were, was, etc. This is called progressive continuous tense or continuous tense. Really, names are not important, but I have to call them something, right? So I'm going to use the names. All I'm really worried about is if you know how to use these words when you see them. Okay. The perfect tense is what we call the tense when you use have, has, or had plus the past participle. Okay. I have eaten too much candy this weekend. And I know this is a lot to sort of digest now. I don't expect you to get all of it, but I want to throw it out there for you, okay? And like I said before, there's no reason you can't pause the video, sort of contemplate this, rewind it, rewatch it, whatever. Just offering you the information. The teaching of the humanities has fallen on hard times. We call this a perfect tense. Has, have, or had with the past participle. Then the progressive tense is the present participle plus some form of the to be verb, okay? So they were eating apple pie when the bees attacked. I am cooking chili for Sunday's football game. Lots of tenses in the English language. Okay, so I know there was a lot going on in that video. I wanted to sort of introduce the idea of participles, past and present, because verb forms can be used in a lot of different ways. But really what I want you to pay attention to in this video are these three things. Many sentences have verb phrases instead of a single verb, okay? Only the simple tenses, past, present, and future, have the single verb, okay? Everything else has a verb phrase, which is a helping verb plus the main verb. That's one. Number two, the ing form, which we call the present participle, of a verb is only used as a verb if it is accompanied by a helping verb, okay? It is snowing outside. A lot of students will see a word like snowing, and it will be used as an adjective or a noun, but they think that because it's a verb form, it's automatically the verb, but that's not always the case. So just keep an eye out for these ing words and pay attention to how they're being used in the sentence, okay? Because they're not always verbs. Finally, number three, nouns that are stuck or tied up inside prepositional phrases can't function as the subject of the sentence or the object of a verb.